In a world that seems to despise disorder, it's surprising that we live in a universe that's actually governed by it. Entropy is the word for how we measure disorder. A system has more entropy if it has more randomness. For example, a messy room is going to have more entropy than a clean room, or the food coloring in this water is going to have more entropy as it's dispersed than it would in this bottle. The second law of thermodynamics states that it is highly unlikely that the particles in this glass of water, the food coloring particles, will ever go towards the state of being in the drop that they were before. In other words, the entropy of the universe will always increase.
However, when we look at infinite time and space, highly unlikely events actually become certain. For example, the random atoms in the universe will eventually form an instantaneous dot. Or they may disperse and form a hat, just for a moment. Even weirdest, they could form a brain, and that brain could have thoughts and awareness, just like us.
The concept of floating brains in space is a very weird concept for many people to think about, but it is actually almost a mathematical certainty that you may be one. The probability of you being a brain that was born on Earth and is made of matter that grows over a lifetime, like what we think we are today, is actually paling in comparison to the probability that we are a Boltzmann brain just floating in space. We think the universe is infinite right now, meaning that the end of the universe is infinite as well. Therefore, random chances become a certainty, and it is a certainty that Boltzmann brains will not only form, but they will form an infinite amount of times, making it much more likely that you are a Boltzmann brain than a real person. So, is it all a dream or an illusion? Is everything you're seeing now, even a video of me talking about Boltzmann brains, just a hallucination and a fabrication that is caused by a moment's random actions of atoms in a dead universe? Well, although this is a pretty far out there idea, it is an interesting thought experiment in how we view ourselves in our brains. Are we just a random collection of atoms, of random biochemistry, that came together to form our thoughts and awareness? Or are we something more? Does this brain experience art? Does this brain have a soul? Or does this brain think that it is human in the same fundamental way that we think we are human today?
Since the introduction of the paradox, it has sparked heated debates within the scientific community. For example, many argue that it is absurd, not only that we could be an instantaneous brain floating in space, but that we also are randomly forming the thoughts that would question if we are a brain that is floating in space. For reasons like this, the Boltzmann brain is largely debunked today. However, it still remains useful as a basis of statistical probability to compare the likelihood of our universe forming to. Furthermore, it is also interesting for us to question whether what we know is real, what we see is really there, and what we think is really ourselves or will disperse in a moment's notice.